So, we are in the Unity season of Advent, and today is about love. So today's conversation is all about love. What a beautiful word and what a beautiful idea, but what is love? Charles Fillmore called love the harmonizing faculty. That when we experience love, when we see love, when we feel love, when we are love, that life harmonizes, that within our being there is harmony unfolding. The harmonizing faculty. And in Unity, we know our practice is not to just experience things, not just to hope for them to happen to us, but to activate them, right? So how do we activate love? How do we experience more love in our lives? And what does it look like if love is a practice? We have to act on it, right? Act on our love. You know, Scripture talks about who we are as people and how we get to awakening. In some Christian cultures, they might say how we get to our salvation. But is it just through being good or is it through doing good? And the idea is that we can come to a place where there's not a difference, right? They're one and the same, that we activate our good and the good of others. We activate love, not just by feeling it, by doing it and then feeling it, and by that being a living process. But when we stop and we cut off one side of the circuit, right? When we just think we are it, or we just decide, I am love, but I don't act on it, how far do we get? If any of you have looked into the work of Gary Chapman, he wrote the book, The 5 Languages of Love. He also wrote a book on forgiveness. And the whole premise in this book is that we can expand our intellectual experience and our intellectual capacity to understand love and forgiveness. We can expand that intellectually. But we also have to expand our skills, our skill sets on activating and sharing it. And we also have to learn interpersonally that if we really want to be harmonizing, then we have to become what I call multilingual. You might notice that when I speak, I try to speak in ways that don't crystallize or canonize the words in any particular form that might really not work for someone or work for someone else. I try to be multilingual. So when I say something, I try to go into the awakened consciousness, enlightened being, Christ consciousness, whatever it is. Because what do our small minds do? Our small minds shut down, right? And they go, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not part of that. I can't feel that. I don't know that. And we stop listening, right? The same thing happens with love. There can be so much love around. And in fact, principle says that there is an abundant amount of love, always present, always accessible, that is inexhaustible. That if you just sit there and try to suck it all up, you can suck it all up all day long. And there is going to be an infinite amount of sun shining upon this person next to you. And when they try to receive it, when they open up, there will be no limit. There will be no less available. Do we believe that? If we believe that, then it's ours to develop the emotional intelligence, to develop the interpersonal skills, and to develop the strategies, the techniques to start recognizing it. So part of Gary's work goes into these ideas of learning about ourselves and learning about other people and how people give and receive love. Did you know that we're not all the same? We're very different. To some people, it means I love you if I give you a gift. To other people, that doesn't mean I love you. That's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't mean I love you, that you're really thinking of me. To someone else, it might mean, if I don't have quality time with you, I can't feel that you love me. If you don't have the time to pick up the phone, make a date to go to a coffee shop, whatever it is, if I can't see you, if I can't touch you for other people, if I can't touch you, I can't feel it. So the love is always all around. The same thing with forgiveness work. Have you noticed that you have a forgiveness style? Do you have an apology style? Do you ever notice that you might have an apology or forgiveness style with one person that doesn't work? We've got some nods. Are you nodding on the live stream? Is there anyone that has experienced something that they said, I thought we cleared that. I know we discussed it and I said I was sorry. Why are they still bringing it up? Why is it here? What's that about? Guess what? They don't speak your love language or your apology style, and your forgiveness language ain't getting through. Right? Relationships fall apart over this. Families break up over this. People disappear over this. I would even say that people have gone into the darkest places of the human condition and even taken their lives because of this gap. So it is ours to act on love. When someone passes and makes their transition, what is one of the first things that happens? Everyone starts thinking, not about what they didn't do or not about what they didn't feel or didn't think, right? They don't sit there and go, I didn't think I loved them enough. I didn't have them come to mind enough. Or, just something inside. What is it? It's almost always what I didn't do. I didn't show it. I didn't say it. I didn't write it. I didn't do something to express it, something to give it form. Teresa of Avila has that beautiful, beautiful poem, those words that say, Christ has no hands but yours. Yours are the hands through which Christ does the work. Your actions, my actions, are the way through which the divine consciousness, in and through and as each one of us, gets love across. So what is love if we don't express it? What is love if we don't continually find ways to expand its experience in our world? Actions have impact, no? There are Buddhist precepts, right? These ideas on, how to live, or if we live by these things, that we can have the most positive impact we could possibly have in this lifetime. And it goes into the idea of karma, that you don't want to build up negative karma. You don't want to build up resentments or hurt with other people, because we are all one. We're this unity consciousness, so everything that we do will come back to us, that we're actually not separate from any living thing. So we don't live in a separate sense, and we can't protect ourselves from something out there. So if there is hurt, it exists in the field in which we all swim, live, and move, and have our being. So the idea in Buddhism is to think very carefully, to slow down, and to have mindful actions. To take mindful actions, to really do inventories on how we show up. To refrain from wrong speech is one of them. How often do we slow down enough to really have a practice around our impact? Because actions have impact, do they not? Do we give ourselves the space to slow down, the space to learn and to expand, the space to honor our experience? And like the song, The Gambler, I love that song, The Gambler. It's on my short list of songs I know how to play. But it says you've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. Do we do that with our actions? Do we know when to hold them? Do we know when to hold our words? And when more time is needed or called for in meditation, in silence, in the practice? The Native American culture teaches silence. It teaches to have fewer words because they have an impact. Think about the impact that someone has had on you because of the words they've said. I forget what I was just going through recently. But there are a number of things people have said to me that I bring them back over and over, like little mantras. When I'm going through something, I say the words that came out of their mouth, and I let them wash over me like, yes, ground this. This was principle. This was truth. Let my being be drawn into that. Unfortunately, sometimes the negativity that we share also repeats like a mantra in our minds and in the minds of others. And as loving as we all are, we've all done it, haven't we? We've all done it. We've all said things. We've all done things, acted on things that if we could just go reverse, 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 delete, delete, delete. Or if we had a different skill set, maybe we've prayed up a different skill set. Sweet Spirit, let my voice sound differently when I'm frustrated. Let it sound different. Let my face look different. My sister and I make this joke, and I can't say some of these words here, but there's a face that can be made that's like this. Just. And sometimes we don't know we're making it at all. It's a resting face, a resting beloved face. But we all have things that we're working on, right? We all have icky parts or places where we just haven't developed the emotional regulation or the skill set or the communication abilities to get what is in our hearts out. We haven't always manifested and demonstrated the ability to express and show love to our fullest capacity. And so what does that look like? And what is the impact when we fall short of love? I am so grateful that I grew up in a day and an age without social media and without access to guns to the degree and the amount that they're available, and drugs to the amount that they're available. Because I know the high school time that I went through, and without having developed emotional regulation, I can't imagine having access to things that could easily take my life, or things that in a moment of frustration, in a moment of frustration could have a lasting impact. Can you feel that? I might not be here. If in an instant I could have done something so easy to lift off, I know I did not have the emotional capacity to deal with my frustration, my anger, when my intention fell short and didn't meet my expectation. Those things that grow you. And it takes a long time to grow us, doesn't it? We take a long time to grow. And it's grace that keeps us safe. And it's grace that releases us from persecution for our mistakes. There are things that I did and said, and some others might think they're light or trite or little, but if they were on some social media forums sitting there, or someone else posted about them, or the ability to have video cameras and photos everywhere all the time, think about all of your moments. And then think if they were crystallized, if they were solidified on this thing called social media or whatever, the newspaper, whatever, and they're there for everyone to see, what would happen? I mean, I can see it. Imagine the shame, most of the times it's you and whatever the experience, if it was a public experience or a shared experience with a friend or a family member or something like that, there's a couple of you that have it. But imagine if everyone had it. And that's been happening lately, hasn't it? It's like we can't take a step without looking back and going, oh, here's all your ugliness. I mean, think about all the shame work and the blame work, and think about how that compounds. Like, if you just know it in your mind, you can just say, bless and release. Like, even if you don't have a connection with that person still, or whatever it is, or yourself, just forgive and bless and release, right? And then you have to trust. But if it could be reshared later in full force or with a video, could you imagine? I think this tells us that we are called, truly called in this day and this time, to a deeper and absolute level of radical compassion, forgiveness, and like a crazy amount of emotional intelligence and skills to be able to transmute these for ourselves and each other. Our Canadian Prime Minister had stuff up lately that it's like, oh, there's pictures that surfaced of you years ago in this state of consciousness. That's happened multiple times. There is the guy from the Young Turks is running for Congress in Southern California. And all this stuff came up lately of comments that he made about women or whatever that weren't in high consciousness and how he would speak. Imagine if everything we were always stepping forward into, right? We're trying always to step forward into our transformation, to step forward into love, to step forward into our greatness, to step forward into new wineskins. But the old wineskins were just coming and wrapping themselves around us constantly, rotting the wine. Is there room for the human condition? Is there room for us to have a past? Is there room for us to have mistakes even now? Is there room for us, even with our highest intentions, to still fall short? Is there room for grace? And is there room for love? Because Charles Fillmore said love is the harmonizing faculty. So we can ask ourselves in any and every moment, is this harmonizing? In this moment, is this harmonizing? I read an article this week, and the article title was, and this caught my eye, because I was like, that doesn't quite make sense to me, let me read more. It said, Marianne Williamson lies about blah, 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 blah. And so I read it. Because I don't think she's a liar. And so I opened the article, and guess what I found? The word lie wasn't mentioned once in the article. The article went on to talk about how there was an idea put out there. She reposted that idea saying, I don't know if she said, I hope this isn't true or whatever, but see, she doesn't talk like me. If she talked like me, you can just say, I said when I said it, I don't know. Right? But she doesn't. She's clear with her words. But she posted something and she said something like, I hope it's not true, that whatever it is, and then posted and retold a story, right? Connected with a link. But she didn't say, I know this is not true and I'm sharing it anyway. So it wasn't actually a lie, was it? It was maybe ignorance. It was maybe lack of research. Maybe it was, a misunderstanding that then was cleared up. And so she cleared it up, whatever it was. She posted and reposted something and said, glad it's not true, whatever it is. But you know what happened in me? And I wrote a little note in the comments. I don't think it'll get to the author, but maybe it will. But I wrote a note in the comments that, because you should have seen the comments. Have you been on social media lately? Do you see all the stuff? Oh, it's horrific. And our children are living in this environment. So it's time to be building up strong, centered children that live from the inside out, right? And strong, centered adults that live from the inside out, right? But I posted, it's hard for me to trust your work as a writer of this article when you're sensationalizing something, calling it a lie to get the attention so that someone will read, when in fact what you're sharing in your article is not a lie, but a misunderstanding. Isn't there room for grace? And can we stop and ask ourselves in every moment, do I know? Because I may not know, and there's got to be grace for when I don't know. But does my action have the potential for more harm? Is my action going to harmonize? Is it going to harmonize? Because we go through hard things. We have to bring up things that are unlike love, that don't feel like love, right? But at least we can check our intention, right? What we've got is our intention and our action. Can I match it against love? Can I match it? And do to the best of my ability, act on those things that I think will generate love or will harmonize something, will bring forth order. We'll co-create those things. That's our space for doing our work. That's our space for the practice. Paul Farini wrote a book. He's one of my favorite authors. This book is called Silence of the Heart and Reflections of the Christ Mind. And he speaks in this book as if he is the voice of Christ, expressing as if from the teachings of Christ, this would be how Christ would show up, what Christ would say. And he does a bit about the church. And he says this, he says, "I would rather be worshiped by murderers and thieves than by those who pretend to do my will by judging and excluding others." Can we check our actions against love? Can we check our actions? And if love is too big of a word, too funny of a word, too ethereal of a word, can we check our actions and say, will this harmonize? Will this create good? Because life is about creating good, is it not? There's enough harm in the world, and we're here to act on and to activate love. Amen? Namaste.